On the show this week, I'm delighted to be joined by Frankie Williams, who's Chief Legal Officer at a company called DeepL, which is an AI language platform that enables companies to communicate effectively across language and culture maps globally. She joined the business a couple of years ago and has seen it go through a significant stage of growth. It was a German headquartered organisation. Frankie's experience up until this point, she had track records of working in-house and taking businesses through IPOs. We talk about how she's leveraged her network in order to create opportunities for herself and how important it is for lawyers of all levels to really harness and leverage your network. So there's really good practical insights into how to go about doing this without seeming too pushy. We also talk about how important it is to back yourself and to step into new opportunities and fill gaps where other people might not be working within or have ownership of. So lots in there for everyone. If you're interested in working in high growth environments, looking at the London tech scene that might be of interest, then this one's for you. So I really hope you enjoy. Today's episode of Lessons I Learned in Law is proudly brought to you by Wordsmith AI. Now, Wordsmith AI is redefining how in-house legal teams automate routine tasks and repetitive tasks like contract review and internal requests so that you and your legal team can work strategically and work on proactive projects. They're an Edinburgh-based startup. They're one of the UK's fastest growing startups, and at a really exciting time in their growth journey. They're showing how technology, AI and talent as a combination can really build the modern in-house legal team. So find out more by heading over to wordsmith.ai. Hi Frankie, welcome to Lessons I Learned in Law.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for making the time. It's been something.
I feel like we've been planning it for a long time.
We have. There's been a few WhatsApp messages of pleading from my side, and some blue ticks that have gone unanswered. But we're here, so thank you on a roasting hot day. So but welcome and thank you for taking the time. So I've given an introduction to you and your background, but if we could just hear, I guess, a bird's eye view of your current role, business, size of company, size of legal function, and then we'll unpick some of the other stuff as we chat.
Yeah, so I'm Chief Legal Officer at DeepL, which is an AI language platform. Cool. Translation and language improvement. It's a German headquarters company. I've been there since January 24. I've got a team of nearly 30, which is more than double the size it was when I arrived. So right. It's an evolving team. And
what did you inherit there then in terms of the legal function?
There were 13 lawyers when I started, okay. And a pretty kind of flat structure, broadly generalists. And I've spent the last year and a half shaping that team and bringing in specialists and putting more structure in the team so that people have more clarity on roles and responsibilities, and also bringing in a more international team. So when I joined, the team was all based in Germany, and now we've got a team here in London, and we've just brought in our first US counsel in Austin.
Excellent. So, and where in Germany is the headquarters?
Headquarters in Cologne.
Okay.
My team are quite geographically dispersed across Germany and a few now in Berlin.
Since DeepL's come in my peripheral vision and been awareness, I see it advertised on bus stops and things, but for people that don't know much about it, like, explain a little bit more about its...
Yeah, it was founded in 2017, so DeepL was doing AI before it was called AI, or before everyone was talking about AI. We have our own proprietary technology stack. Even during the time that I've been there, the product offering has evolved massively. So we introduced Write, which is a writing improvement tool. We've introduced more customization, so you can now adapt style and so on in translations. And we also introduced our voice tool end of last year, which is live voice-to-text translation.
Okay. Cool. Lots going on. I imagine the pace of change and everything that's happening is wild when you're seeing it at the forefront of it. Well, cool. We'll look forward to hearing a bit more about that. But we'll jump in with, if you could share your first lesson, that'd be great.
Yeah. So my first lesson is, and I'm thankful that I learnt this relatively early in my career, but my first lesson is that no one knows all the answers.
Okay.
And this has come up, I think, with a number of your guests, which is a good thing, I think, because I think it's something that is helpful for lawyers to realise, because I think a lot of the time people, particularly more senior lawyers, don't admit that. But the truth is that none of us know all the answers.
Right.
And I was the way that I discovered this. I was probably 3 or 4 years qualified. I was on a call with a partner who I didn't work with very frequently, and it was a call with a massive team of lawyers on both sides, plus clients on both sides, and a question came up around distributable reserves.
Okay.
There was this back and forth around the availability of distributable reserves, and the partner that I was working with said, we're going to have to consult our tax colleagues on this, and we'll come back to you. We moved on to the next point, carried on. After the call, she said to me, what was your take on the distributable reserves point? And I just kind of thought, oh God. And I said, yeah, I didn't really understand why it was a tax point. And she said, oh, it wasn't at all. But she said that's kind of a wild card, a code amongst the lawyers to kind of say, don't call me on this one. Yeah. I'm going to figure it out, but don't make me look daft in front of my clients.
Yeah, a good one for the back pocket.
Yeah, and it was, and that just, she was so open about the fact that she didn't know the answer, would have to figure it out, and I think that's something that it's good to understand that as a junior lawyer, and I think as you become more senior, I now have absolutely no concerns about saying I don't know the answer, and I think that's just something that comes with age and experience. I know lots of answers, but I don't know all the answers, and I think that's knowing that that's not just you is reassuring. Although interesting, I had a message from one of my friends the other day who's a very successful senior lawyer, and she sent me a message saying, I'm coming towards the end of my career, and it really concerns me that I still feel like I'm winging it.
Right.
It's like, that's okay. I think everyone feels like that. If you stop feeling like that, you're probably not
in the wrong game.
You're probably not in an interesting enough job.
Yeah. It's reassuring. Have you ever had that line turned back on you? Have you ever been?
No, I haven't. But I would. But if it was, I would absolutely let them play it.
A knowing nod. I imagine.
I think it's. I think, like you said, it comes with time. Like, what do you think gives, like, how as a junior lawyer though, how what would you advise someone in that position? Because I think there is a bit of, you have to front up a little bit, and you're always advised fake it till you make it a bit. So how would you advise someone to?
I mean, I think if you're being asked a technical point of law and you don't know the answer, you're going to look quite stupid if you try and wing it.
Yeah.
So I think being comfortable saying, I don't know the answer, but I'll figure it out, is what you should be doing, because there's no point trying to cover too much with bluster and bravado.
Yeah, and then it's the execution, like ensuring you do figure it out, and you've got the integrity to come back and build the trust that gives you that breathing space. I think is important. Surely AI knows all the answers.
Well, it depends what AI you're asking and how you ask it.
Totally. So your time. So tell us a bit about your early years in practice. Where did you?
So I had a really unusual start in that I actually started my training contract outside London, and moved partway through, which I'll come back to actually in one of my lessons, but. So I trained with a small corporate boutique firm, and then when I qualified, I went in-house straight away as a newly qualified, and I was there for 3 years working in sports events, which was enormous fun but terrifying. I was sole counsel in a AIM-listed company. Wow. And I learned more than I could possibly have learnt in 3 years as an NQ in private practice, and then I went back into private practice because I realised that I had a lot to learn and I wasn't going to learn it on my own. So I went back and spent 10 or so years, not quite 10 years, doing M&A in all sorts of different sectors. which was really interesting. I learned all sorts of random things about shipping and farming and insurance and all sorts of things. But I'd always wanted to go back in-house. Okay. I loved being involved in the business and, being in the room where decisions are made and having a huge variety, but also seeing things through. I think the thing that, and I think this is something that is often cited by particularly transactional lawyers who end up going in-house. You are so engrossed in a client's business for 3-4 months, however long the transaction takes. Everything gets signed off, they go, and you never actually see how the integration goes or whether they've acted on any of the recommendations. And the truth is, most due diligence reports get put in a drawer. I always feel like a great responsibility to read and act on due diligence reports, having written so many of them in my early career. But I think being able to see those things through is the bit that I enjoy, and I think it's other people prefer just moving on to the next one and having a fresh and different challenge, but that was something for me that was a frustration, and that I enjoy in-house is seeing things through. And
seeing through. At that time, when you moved back into practice from the 3 years or so as sole counsel, how was it perceived, like, in terms of?
It was really hard. Right. It was hard to convince people that the experience that I had was equivalent, because I think law firms are, and it might be different now, but I think they were quite close-minded about what the experience and expertise of a 3-year qualified lawyer should look like. And mine was different. And it wasn't always comfortable, because I think I had a very different view of what the client wanted, having been the client. And saying to the partners I was working for, well, actually they don't want 5 pages of law, they want an answer, is not necessarily the right answer in a law firm.
No, it's not going to be. It's not going to be.
I'm trying to be diplomatic. Right? Yeah, exactly. It goes against the business model.
So we'll jump into lesson 2.
Lesson 2 is invest in your network, and I think this is something it's not something that is necessarily thought about early enough. Certainly, when I was in the early part of my career, it didn't occur to me that was something that would be valuable. And I think that law firms neglect that. Interesting, I remember going to a client event when I was kind of a mid-level associate, and it was actually an event that was purely for mid-level associates and their equivalent numbers within the client. That just doesn't happen enough. You build your network amongst your peers, and that's really important, because that will see you through. And particularly law firms, they need to be investing in those relationships, because they'll be the people instructing as the mid-level lawyers progress. So, and particularly in some industries, it's easier and harder in different industries, but it's also more or less important. And particularly in technology, the tech network in London is very small, but it's also very powerful and important. And I've been really fortunate that I have worked with some fantastic VCs, and they have been incredibly helpful to me and supportive to me during my career. And I think you need to understand the importance of building relationships, but also of leveraging that. No one is more interested in your career than you are. So you have to be comfortable with leveraging that, but also making yourself available. It is definitely a two-way street. So I think people are very generous with their time, and I've found that other senior lawyers are very, very generous with their time. But it does also mean that when someone reaches out to me and says, can you help me with this? Can you make an introduction? Can you talk to this person? I do, because people have been generous to me in that respect.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly with technology and venture capital, it's
hugely important.
It's hugely important. Yeah, it really is who you know, but it's also demonstrating your usefulness.
Yeah. Where do you think you learned that, like, as a skill set? Because I think it's an underdeveloped skill within lawyers. But do you feel, was it inherent? Or
I mean, out of necessity, really. When my first in-house role after that stint in private practice was at King Digital, which was Candy Crush. We did an IPO, and then we were acquired by Activision Blizzard. So I did myself out of a job by occupational hazard of being a corporate lawyer. But and at that point, I was probably 15 years qualified, had only done one in-house job, and really had to try and figure out what the next thing looked like. And at that point, I realised the importance of really investing in that. But also, that was an amazing company where the people that I had worked with there are now spread across the tech ecosystem.
Yeah.
And those people have been very generous. And that's kind of when I realised the importance of that.
I think your point on that people wanting to help, I think it's framing it like that. I think networking or tends to, like, in private practice, thinking back to when I was a lawyer, it had the connotations of going to the pub or going to an event and you're
standing around with
tepid
wine.
Yeah, tepid wine, but without really signposting what you're there for, or like what someone can give to you. I think it's important in terms of what you said about framing it as I'd like to learn from you, or I want some help. And I think there's so many opportunities for lawyers to do that now, and do it a bit more at scale, given LinkedIn and people being a bit more accessible. I'm firmly in agreement. So did you feel at that point you were like backpedaling, like were you building your network deliberately whilst at King? Or
no, I think I was fortunate that gave me a great network amongst investors and also all of those people who had then dispersed across. And they all had networks already, because a lot of them had been in technology longer than I had. But I had some really good advice more recently, talking to a VC, and it was when I'd left Farfetch actually, and I was looking for my next thing, and she said to me, what is it you're looking for? And I said, I'm really open-minded. I don't really mind what it looks like. I'd like it to be this kind of stage of company. That's the kind of hyperscale is the bit that I enjoy. It's the interesting piece. But other than that, I'm quite open-minded. And she said, you really need to be much more intentional,
right?
Because it makes it think like you haven't. It makes it sound like you haven't thought it through.
Okay.
And actually, that was really good advice for me, because it is important to know what you want, and particularly what you don't want. And I think that's been the benefit for me of working in a couple of different technology companies, knowing what's important to me and what's an absolute no for me has been really important. So finessing that, and also thinking about what your ideal career trajectory might look like. I'm not someone who's had a 5-year plan or 10-year plan, absolutely not. And I've been fortunate that I've kind of fallen into some things, but I think to build that network in a compelling way, people need to feel like you know what you want, because then they can be useful to you, and they will. That's what I've found, that if you're thoughtful and intentional about the conversations that you have, people will then remember. and they will come back to you later.
Yeah.
Just going to pause for a couple of seconds and
say that today's episode is brought to you in partnership with Wordsmith AI. The Wordsmith AI is redefining how in-house legal teams work and operate, and how they automate repetitive tasks like contract review and other internal queries, and fielding those internal requests that are repetitive and can clog up how a legal team works. It allows in-house legal teams, frees up time to work on more strategic projects proactively. They're based in Edinburgh, so it's close to my heart, and they're one of the fastest growing legal technology providers globally. And they're really redefining how you can take technology and people and talent and transform the way that a business operates. So check them out at wordsmith.ai. I think it's like networking. Like, you might not... I think a lot of the people I speak to, they don't have... Like, it's hard to see them saying, I had that plan to get where, and this was my... I think in-house it's very difficult to plan like that as well, but if you're proximate and you're networking with proximity around where you want to get to...
Well, the opportunities come to you if you've built those relationships. And I think of it more as relationship building than network, because I think it does have those slightly forced connotations.
Yeah, I agree. There's no shortage of networking opportunities for sure within the legal space. And what's been your biggest success, do you feel, from tapping into your network?
So I think you won't want me to say this, but all of my in-house roles and all of my advisory roles have come through my network. Yeah. And I think certainly at a very senior level in venture-backed companies, those roles come through the network. And I think in particular the investors are very helpful and useful and important, but the talent teams in the venture capital firms they're all absolutely lovely. They all know each other. They're very supportive and helpful. They're willing to just have a coffee and a chat. Yeah. And that network is a very close one, and they do talk to each other because they're all in the same investments. Yeah. And that for me has been the real, the really powerful element. And that's my last two roles and the advisory roles that I've had have all come through. Yeah. Have all come through network. Yeah.
You'd think we wouldn't want that to happen, but it's it's partly the reason around the course details that I sent you. It's like not everyone's going to use a recruiter to find a role, and I think there's so much more in terms of building a network and growing a network that can open those doors, and it's how we develop business, right? It's networking
and we still need to use the recruiters to build our teams.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I know exactly. What goes around comes around. Good. Cool. We'll move on to lesson 3.
Lesson 3 is be bold.
Right.
So I think one of the I would never claim to be someone who's been very intentional about the route that my career has taken, but I have increasingly realised that it's always worth a punt. And so I think those, sometimes pushing doors open for yourself does work. And so whether it's been, taking that role as a newly qualified, absolutely terrifying, but ended up being a great learning experience for me. But also, having those network conversations and putting yourself out there and saying, actually, this is what I'm looking for. But Farfetch came about because I was introduced to them by someone in my network, went and had a conversation with them about they were planning an IPO, and so I went to have a conversation with them, primarily with the objective of knowledge sharing and helping them out, because someone in my network had asked me to. Because
you had led that process with King, or you'd been
exactly,
involved
So and the result of that conversation was me saying, well, maybe I could come and help with your IPO.
So Frankie shaped hole here.
Yeah, exactly. and I think if you haven't done a process like that before, it's hard to know how intense it is. Doing that alongside your day job is pretty uncomfortable. And so I, created a role for myself. And also with my with the various advisory roles that I've had, most of them have come through network. This company, is looking to build its legal team, and they've not been the right roles for me as a GC, but they've been companies that I've liked, that have been in an interesting stage of growth and where I can add value. And so I've said, well, actually, no, this isn't the right role for me, but I'd love to help you in a different capacity, and it's pitching at that point. But that takes some courage to say, well, actually, this you don't know you need this thing, but I can offer it to you. And we're certainly not taught to be salespeople as lawyers, but I think I've become increasingly bold about doing that, and not all of them happen, but I've had some wonderful experiences come about as a result of just being bold and
nailing what you want.
Yeah, exactly. And not being afraid to ask people. I think again it comes back to it ties in with leveraging the network, but not being afraid to say to people, can you help me out? Can you make an introduction? Whatever it is.
I love a little how can I help you as a finisher to a conversation, and then it leads to the same question reciprocated.
Exactly.
I think it's a good one to use.
And I had some really interesting conversations when I was post IPO at Farfetch. My role evolved into primarily a focus on the legal team. We were probably about 20 people, I think, at IPO, just pre-IPO. But I was given the mandate to figure out what, a full-service, world-class public company legal team should look like, which was an absolute gift for me because I hadn't done anything like that before. And I think that's a part of being a GC that you don't often get to learn before you're a GC. So I got to do that in a deputy role where that was my main focus.
Right, cool.
And I think that was very insightful of the CLO at Farfetch to invest in that. And as part of that process, I reached out to a load of both legal operations people, but also GCs in more scaled tech companies, and said, I'm figuring out how to do this. I would love an hour of your time to talk about what's worked, particularly what hasn't worked, what you do again, what you wouldn't do again. And people were very generous with their time. Some of them were through intros. Some of them I just cold emailed.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the conversations, I had several conversations off the back of that, and went and visited various companies, and I was going to San Francisco and Palo Alto to visit various companies, and I'd emailed the then general counsel at Slack, a guy called David Shalhassi. He's had an amazing career. He was in Salesforce and Groupon and Slack, and then went back to Salesforce through the acquisition. But he invited me in for an hour of his time, and he was incredible. He was so generous with his learnings and how he'd built teams, what he thought about, particularly about how he engaged with the business in terms of making a business case for that, which is hard. Legal is a cost center, and we don't speak the same language in terms as sales and marketing in terms of ROI and that investment, and we should, because it is an investment and there is a return and there are cost savings. And so he was very helpful in talking me through all of those things, and he also told me some wonderful stories. But I said to him at the end of the meeting, why on earth did you say yes to me? And he said, no one ever asked me anymore.
All right. Yeah.
And he had all this wonderful wisdom to give, and he said, no one ever takes the chance. And so I think he
now he's going to get inundated.
I know. I shouldn't have said that. But he, a lot of people didn't reply, so it's not going to work every time.
Skin, right,
But it's really worth a punt sometimes.
Yeah, and they're not replying. There's no. I think that's the other thing around that networking and relationships. It's like people are busy. People have got other things that get in the way of responding to that message, and with all good intent,
They might not. Yeah, I didn't mean to draw the parallel there, but
it's fair comment.
Yeah, I will think so. Yeah, so I think that is the thing, that like the what if, if they don't respond,
but persist and they might end up replying.
And they're on the sofa. Sorry. So outside of work, like what have you got on? I know you've got a daughter that's birthday. I think I know her birthday because it's
I can never come. I can never come to your band's night. I've got a 10-year-old daughter who is a bundle of energy and a pile of fun, and so most of my time outside work is either schlepping her around to swimming and riding and all those things, but also she's an absolutely fantastic travel companion.
Okay, nice.
She and I have had lots of fantastic adventures together, and that's been really exciting for me to, see the world through her eyes. I think you forget. I've been really fortunate in work, but also as a child, to travel a lot and see the world. But you become a bit blasé about that. But when you see those things through the eyes of a child, you can really appreciate them. Yeah,
the first time seeing it. Where's been your favourite place that you've visited?
So I took a break between Farfetch and DeepL, and we went to Costa Rica, which was really exciting with some friends. And then earlier this year we went to Singapore. I lived in Singapore as a child. And she had never been to Asia. So she got the same slightly sterile, non-Asian introduction to Asia as me. But she absolutely loved it. Okay. And we were living there because my dad was a civil engineer and was building a big complex. And we stayed in one of the hotels that he built, which was she was pretty excited about staying in one of Granddad's hotels.
Lovely.
So that was really nice. But that was wonderful. Again, seeing that through her eyes, and it is that is a culture shock. It's very different. Yeah. But that was great.
Nice. I've started watching Ewan McGregor and Charlie Boorman. They've got a new thing on Apple, but it got me back into the first one, like a long way round. Give me a travel itchy feet to travel again. But
I've watched Race Across the World, all of the Race Across the World series with my daughter, and she loves it.
Yeah, that is good.
So I've been trying to persuade her that during her gap year we should go and do Race Across the World, but she's not convinced that she'll want to do it with me, even at 10.
Not good on a budget.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, maybe we could do it with a credit card instead.
Sneaky. What is that? How much in the advisory work? Like, how much of that are you still involved in, and how time consuming is
I'm not doing as much as I was. I'm still involved with Bloom and Wild, which is a wonderful company. They're a lovely group of people. I absolutely love their product. Very enthusiastic customer. But the other advisory roles that I've done have been for specific projects. So I work with WeTransfer on their IPO. Which ended up getting pulled, but and then I've done some work with Atomico's portfolio companies. They have I think the VCs are now really consciously using operators from their network of companies to help the earlier stage portfolio companies, and that's such a valuable offering because, for me, when I'm working with earlier stage companies, a lot of it feels like stating the obvious, but of course it's not when you're starting out. And I have the benefit of the hindsight that I've developed going through IPO processes and M&A transactions, and thinking of all the things I wish we'd done sooner. And so having that experience to be able to say, actually, these things which feel like an unnecessary investment of time and energy and cost will actually be really, really worthwhile further down the line. Nice. So that's great, because I feel like I add real value when I have those conversations.
Yeah. And giving back as well.
Yeah.
And, similar to what your previous lesson was around.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm asking everyone on their favourite their podcast or book recommendations.
So I have I listen to lots of podcasts. I listen to an awful lot of audiobooks and I listen to an awful lot of podcasts. I'm not someone who particularly listens to music. Okay. I listen to people talking, and I absolutely love When It Hits the Fan, which is about communications.
Right.
And so they look at the news stories of the week through the eyes of communications teams, and particularly where it's often crisis communications and how well or badly they've been handled. And that's super interesting because I've been in that room so many times. I've been very lucky to work with wonderful communications professionals, so I've not been the one having to make the calls. But those conversations are so interesting, and they make such a difference in terms of perception of things that happen, how they're communicated. Yeah. So that's
who's that? What type of people present on
that?
They're
both former communications professionionals. So it's
right.
they've been there.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting.
And they just look at live case studies, or
they just go through the news stories of the week, and or they pick on one news story and just talk about how it could have been done better, or how it's been done well in terms of how the communications have reacted to events.
Nice. And what's the most exciting thing what's the thing you're most excited about at DeepL at the moment that you guys are involved in?
I think there's a lot of exciting development happening. I think it's been really interesting to see, even in the time that I've been there, but since ChatGPT was released publicly, the public discourse on AI has been very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important conversation. But there are an awful lot of companies who've been solving problems using computers for a long time, and I think it's interesting to see how that will evolve, particularly around regulation. A lot of the regulation isn't seeking to control the solutions that companies like ours are providing, but there is a reasonable concern around broader applications of general purpose AI. So I think that's interesting. But in terms of what we're doing, we are working on more customization so that our customers can get a more nuanced result, which is really interesting. And then voice, I think that's kind of the big frontier is working towards voice to voice, which will be very exciting.
Cool, loads going on. All right. Well, thank you for joining me, and thank you for taking the time and out of a busy schedule. It's been really nice chatting and hearing all about it and your lessons. Thank you for sharing them.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'd like to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Wordsmith AI, for sponsoring today's episode. As a legal tech company, Wordsmith AI share our belief that great legal teams can take amazing tools and transform the way that in-house legal teams work and operate. So to find out more about Wordsmith, head over to wordsmith.ai. So that wraps up another episode of Lessons I Learned in Law, powered by Herriot Brown in-house legal recruitment. Now, I share these stories each week to help lawyers of all levels, and both in private practice or working in-house. And it doesn't matter if you're early in your career or you're already leading a team. Learning from your peers or from those who have walked in your shoes before, then this is the show for you. If you find it useful, I would love it if you could share it with your colleagues or share it with your network, or drop us a message just to let us know that you're listening and that you're out there. Feedback really helps us grow the show and take it in the direction that gives the most value to you, our listeners. So until next time, I've been Scott Brown. Thank you.